Hi, I'm Elizabeth Pratt with the League of Women Voters of Oregon. The League is a grassroots, nonpartisan organization that has provided voters with unbiased election information since its founding in 1920. We have invited state and local candidates to engage in one-on-one conversations about important issues. Welcome to our video voters guides, and welcome to Fred Thompson, candidate for U.S. Congressional District 5. Welcome and greetings to you.
Thank you. I'm pleasure to be here.
So, would you tell us something about your qualifications and why you're interested in serving in this position?
Well, I've been in Oregon for 35 plus years. I've had a tremendous background, both in manufacturing and my education. I've worked in Canada, Mexico, and Europe. I've worked all over the United States. Been mostly in manufacturing, both small, medium, and large corporations. And I'm concerned about what's happening here in Oregon, and I want to get jobs back for Oregon and get manufacturing back. And I certainly have that background. A little bit in my career, I worked for the Eugene Water and Electric Board. I ran that's the largest public utility in the state of Oregon. I ran a construction department, so I understand what the needs are here in Oregon, and what the needs are around the country, and so I'm prepared to go to Washington, D.C. and bring a voice to that need.
What kind of manufacturing?
Basically wood products. I've been in wood products for about 25 years.
Okay.
And we're a natural resource state, so we need to get back to that. And you know, in the wood products industry has been one of the most progressive industries around. I mean, we've used wood since before Noah built the ark, so wood has been part of our history. And I think that the wood products industry, who's been very progressive in their manufacturing process of updating that from the old sawmills to the high-tech facilities they are today, need to have a voice in Washington, D.C., and I want to bring that voice.
Okay. So is that one of your issues that you'd be working on? What are some others that would like to be involved in?
Well, certainly I want to get, the federal government owns about 60% of our timberland here in Oregon. I'd like to get that back into the ownership in the hands of Oregonians, because they're the ones that can manage that the best.
Back into
that, yeah.
Even though it's always been federal.
It's always been federal, but I think it's time that we change and get that back into the ownership of the counties and the cities and the people of Oregon. So we used to be able to get timber contracts. We haven't been able to get that for a number of years, and I think that we can certainly see the unemployment in Oregon, that it's very high, and when I first came to Oregon in the early 70s, you know, you could get a family wage paying job in any town in this great state, and our schools were well funded and our roads were well taken care of, and those timber revenues provided a lot of economic viability for our people, and I certainly want to get back to that.
Okay. Are there issues associated with the federal budget that you would be interested in? What sort of suggestions do you have for dealing with the federal budget?
Well, I think that we should focus in on what the federal government is supposed to do, which is our national security, and look at those particular issues and stop a lot of the stimulus that's going on that they're using today. And then our tax structure needs to take a look at. We have to take a look at that, and I think that we need to look at all the other issues that should be state mandated and not federal government mandated.
Okay. Do you have suggestions on how to approach health care so that we have more successful outcomes and more affordable health care?
Well, you know, I had my older brother, when he was 6 years old, he had polio in his right arm, and I watched my parents work with him to try to get him the kind of health care that he needed, and thank goodness we had hospitals like Shriners Hospital for Children, and they facilitated some operations on him that gave him a life. And I think there's a lot of private healthcare organizations out there that provide that service, and I think that if we get back to people with jobs and they can afford their own health care. And what we have today is a lack of employment, and so people just certainly need health care. And so, you know, I think that it's more of a role of the individual and to take care of that versus it is for the government. So I think we need to take a real hard look at what we're doing in that particular area and see what we can do to help facilitate that. If we have a vibrant economy, you know, people are going to reach out and get the health care that they need. Ones that have special needs, we certainly need to address those needs. Is that a government role, or is that an individual or a private agency role? That's something that we need to address. So I think we still need some more work on that, and I think that we need to all kind of come together and see what we can do to facilitate that.
Okay. I'm interested in your perspective on issues associated with global climate change and how we should be responding to that.
Well, yeah, you know, the wood products industry, we've been dealing with that for over 30 years. And let me give you an example. The old wigwam burners, you know, that we used to have in every mill where they would burn the wood waste. Well, a lot of people don't realize, and I've asked this question, I said, what happened to those? And people said, well, the EPA, you know, mandated that they be turned off or shut down, and that's not true. In the Pacific Northwest, we invented particle board, and that waste wood became a residual for that industry. So wood products really is a product that goes from cradle to cradle, not cradle to grave. And people don't understand that because most of the people that we have in Washington, D.C. have not been involved in that industry. So, you know, I took on a particular project in Monticello, Georgia, and I put an RTO, which is regenerative thermal oxidizer, on that, and the EPA said I couldn't build that facility. I told them they were wrong, and we did build that facility, and we did clean the air. So the industry is very progressive. We just haven't been good about, speaking to the people, let them know that they have been cleaning up those facilities for a long time because it just makes economic sense. So, you know, I think and I've worked with a lot of people from the EPA, and a lot of them just don't know what's going on in the manufacturing world. We need to bring a voice of manufacturing to Washington, D.C. so we have more of a partnership versus an adversarial relationship, which I see going on now, which I've experienced in my career.
So I'm hearing a sense that we need to have better understanding of each other's issues. How would you contribute to that, and how would you contribute to less partisanship and less in Congress if you were to
Well,
serve?
since I'm not a professional politician, and I've worked in the industry and worked around the country forever, you know, I see a lot of the parties are divided because of old wars or things that have happened in the past, and they carry that into Washington, D.C. You know, most of the politicians come from from the ladder. You know, they come from a county commissioner and then a state representative and a state senator, and over time there become a lot of issues between one party versus the other. I'm not worried about parties. I'm worried about being an American, and that's where I'm going. I'm going to go there as an American, and I don't have any perceived notions about who said what or what happened. I think we have so many problems today, we need to resolve those problems, and we need to come together as Americans and make that happen. I'm not interested about the color of their skin or what party they belong to or who they're married to. I'm interested in solving these problems and get people back to work so we can provide a great life for our families. And that's what the Constitution states: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we need to get back to, and stop all this arguing and bickering going on. I think all of these caucuses that they have, we ought to take all the doors off of those caucus rooms and put everybody around the table and resolve the problems, because nothing's getting done today and a lot of people are hurting today. We've got over 20% unemployment, and that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong.
Okay. We're almost at the end of our time today.
Okay.
So what other information would you like our audience to know about you?
Well, I'm a Vietnam vet. I served with the 101st Airborne in Vietnam in special ops with a helicopter company. I was 18 years old when I went in the Army. I served my country then. When Junction City, where I used to live, had a problem with their school board, I went and got onto the school board and helped them there. Now our country has a real problem today, and I want to go and serve our citizens today and bring a real voice to them, because that's exactly what we need. We need a real strong voice that says this is what middle America wants, and I'm capable of doing that. I'm not afraid to do that. I've got two sons at 13 and 15 and a fabulous wife, but we need to give those young people a future. And that's what I want to do when I go to Washington, D.C.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.